Up next, the other breaking news just in tonight. Jack Smith's January 6th report is now just moments away from being officially released. This after Judge Eileen Cannon rejected Donald Trump's last minute appeal. All the 11th hour details in the 11th hour at CNN next. This just in tonight, Judge Eileen Cannon just rejected a last minute bid by President elect Donald Trump to stop the release of Jack Smith's January 6th report. What that means is the DOJ could very well release that report just moments from now at the stroke of midnight. With me now, CNN Interior Justice correspondent Evan Perez and Norm Eisen, attorney, former White House ethics czar, and co-founder of the new publication, The Contrarian. Let me begin with you here, Evan. What do you know about the time? We'll come to you. What do you know about what's happening in terms of Norm, the procedural aspect of when this report will come out? We know it had to come out. Now what?
Donald Trump had tried a last bit desperate Hail Mary attempt to stop this in front of Judge Cannon. In the briefing on that, it became clear that DOJ was going to release that report after midnight. So we are now in the countdown. Judge Cannon has rejected Donald Trump's effort, and that means we are minutes away from seeing the contents of this Volume 1 report, even though, in my view, she's illegitimately holding back Volume 2 on the Mar-a-Lago case. We're going to get the January 6th findings.
So, Evan, we know that as part of the statute, the special counsel has to provide a report at the conclusion of their work. Jack Smith has already resigned. He does not have active cases right now involving the president-elect of the United States. There's been, as Norm indicated, some back and forth as to whether he could release information responding to what happened in the election interference case in Washington, D.C., or the classified documents case in Florida that the judge said was not appropriate because he was not an appropriate special counsel who could get the congressional funding. There's issues with that argument, of course, but we're waiting to get those two volumes.
Right.
We've seen a lot in the indictments. What are we expecting to see?
Well, we're expecting to see a lot of what Jack Smith said in his last, in the last update to the indictment. You remember Donald Trump was indicted last summer in 2020. Sorry, actually 2 summers ago. In 2023 summer in August, he was indicted on those 4 charges, and then after the Supreme Court granted Trump expansive immunity last summer, the special counsel updated that indictment. So a lot of what we're going to see is based on what they said in court in those filings, which is basically just the evidence that they presented that Donald Trump not only was trying to overturn the election, but he was also trying to defraud the United States and was trying to interfere with people's right to vote, right? So those are the things we're going to see more at length, their decision making for those charges. Now, the one that I think everybody wants to see is the one related to classified documents case. That was always the stronger case that Jack Smith had, and also we know that they explored a whole lot of set of venues, avenues of investigation. So that is the one that Donald Trump and his team are most interested in keeping out of public view. They're just fighting this other fight because it's convenient, and they're kind of getting a lot of what they want. I'll read you just a part of what Judge Cannon says, by the way, Laura, and I think you'll find this interesting. Basically, she says, she sort of intimates that she would be inclined to block this, but she says she only has authority to enforce its own orders in this proceeding, and the court is therefore constrained to deny this present request. In other words, regretfully, I can't do what you're asking for Donald Trump in this case, right? So we anticipate that this report at 12:01 is going to be transmitted to Congress, and then thereafter, hopefully, we can persuade somebody to let us see it.
You know, it must be a weak argument that Donald Trump is making if even Judge Eileen Cannon won't consider it. But the shock of what's going to be in that report when we get it, it never grows old that you have this evidence and the detail that a president of the United States lost an election. He refused to leave office. He came up with this cockamamie scheme to have the electors for the losing candidate replace the electors for the winning candidate. He tried to pressure his own vice president to do that. He incited a violent mob, and now he's returning to the Oval Office with the ability to use those powers again. So this report is very important and worth waiting up for.
Well, first of all, this show is always worth waiting up for, and we're gonna keep going until we know everything that's in there. But I'll tell you this: he's fighting, as you know, the classified documents case as well. There's a lot left unknown. I mean, when you file an indictment, as you all know, you are meeting your burden of probable cause. You're not necessarily meeting your burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You don't have to in those documents.
yet.
It's notice pleadings, right? You're on notice of what you're actually being charged with. This might give us the color and the decision making of what they chose not to pursue as well, right, Evan?
This is the January 6th case, right? I mean, right now, DOJ has already conceded that they cannot release the classified documents report. They know that Walt Nada and De Oliveira, the other employee co-defendants, the two Carlos De Oliveira, their two co-defendants are still, technically going to go on trial at some point, perhaps. DOJ is still pursuing that case. And so because of that, DOJ is not allowed to prejudice that case. And so they already agreed that they're not going to release that tonight, right? They're hoping at some point when that's over, they can do that.
Why are you championing at the bit on that point, Norm?
Is there anybody in America who thinks that when Donald Trump gets office, he's already promising these sweeping, expansive pardons, that he's actually going to continue with the prosecution of
nobody
his
expects that.
valet, Nauta, and his employee, De Oliveira? No.
But to
We-
your point, what's
right.
your point?
No, I think to your point, no. We expect that Pam Bondi, the new Attorney General, when she gets into office, will move quickly to just dismiss these cases, right? I'll tell you one quick thing. I don't know how much time we have. One quick thing about the battle tonight. Donald Trump's lawyers actually asked the judge to not allow this Volume 1 to be released. But in that, one of the things they argue is that this will interfere with the transfer of power,
Yes.
executive power. I just thought it was very, very, it was almost like I had to imagine the lawyers were giggling as they were writing that, because obviously Donald Trump is accused of violating that very thing, right? Which is the peaceful transfer of power in this case. And so the idea that they're arguing you shouldn't release this report because it might interfere with the transfer of power is kind of rich.
Well, by the way, I mean, not for nothing, he has been very clear that he believes that all this falls into the category of lawfare, that the American people voted him in office in spite of it, and some would say because of it, he argues. And so if it was not enough to be disqualifying for elections, you wonder if it's really any veracity to being disqualifying from being able to govern. But, just thinking inside the box. Evan Perez, Norm Eisen, thank you both so much. We'll have continuing coverage here on CNN as soon as that report is released. But up next, we're going back